Not to what I did, but to why I did it. Because I promise you, you don't know the full story yet. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where silence turns into stories too heavy to carry alone. You won't believe what happened next. Daniel used to hold me like he meant it, like I was something soft and sacred. Now, he barely looks up from his screen when I walk into the room. Dinner is quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but heavy. Like something unsaid is always hanging in the air, waiting, daring someone to break the silence. We sleep on opposite sides of the bed. He turns away before the lights go off. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is what marriage is supposed to become. Just two people, sharing a roof, not a life. Noah came to live with us 2 years ago, after his mom died. I remember the day he moved in. 17. Tall, quiet, eyes like he'd seen too much for someone his age. He barely spoke at first, just nods and shrugs. He'd spend hours in his room with the door cracked open, music playing low. Like he didn't want to be heard, but didn't want to feel alone either. I tried to reach him. I cooked. I asked questions. Offered rides to school, laundry help, anything. He always said, thanks. Always polite, but always distant. Until one day, I caught him looking, not like a boy looking at a stepmom, not like a child. It was different. Just for a second too long. I told myself I imagined it, that I was reading into things, that maybe I was just lonely, desperate to feel something. Anything. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being a woman in this house. I became a shadow. An extra. Even the way Daniel says my name now feels like a formality. As if he's talking to a coworker. Not the woman who once knew every line on his palm. And Noah? He barely speaks unless spoken to. But every now and then, he lingers. In the kitchen doorway. At the top of the stairs. By the living room couch when I'm folding laundry. Sometimes, I'd feel his eyes on me before I even turned around. But when I did, he'd already looked away. There's a kind of loneliness that turns you hollow. That makes you question your worth in small, quiet ways. Not all at once, but slowly. Like erosion. And in that silence, I started noticing things I shouldn't have. Or maybe I just noticed what was always there. I don't know. Not yet. But I knew the air was shifting. And so was I. Daniel left that Friday morning, suitcase in hand, already half on the plane in his mind. He kissed me on the cheek. No eye contact. No warmth. Just a cold press of lips against skin. And then the door clicked shut behind him. The house felt different the moment he was gone. Quieter, but not in the peaceful way. More present. Like the silence had shape. Like it was watching me. That evening, I made dinner, just enough for two. Noah sat across from me, shoulders slouched, hair damp from practice. He barely touched his food. Said his back was sore. Something about pushing too hard at drills. I offered to help. Without thinking. It just came out. Want me to massage it out a bit? He looked at me. Really looked. And then nodded, just once. We moved to the living room. The couch. He sat on the floor, back to me. I knelt behind him. My hands hovered for a second before touching his shoulders. Warm. Tense. You don't realize how grown someone's become until your hands are on them. He wasn't a child. Not anymore. I told myself I was helping. That I was doing what any kind, nurturing woman would do. Just easing pain. But the air felt thick. Like it knew something I didn't. I started slow. Soft circles with my thumbs. He flinched at first, then eased into it. Let his shoulders drop. Let out a breath that made something inside me tighten. No words. Just the sound of our breathing. The clock ticking on the wall. My hands moved lower, across the blades of his shoulders. And that's when he said it. Soft, barely above a whisper. Can you keep going, but lower? I froze. My hands stopped mid-motion. He didn't turn around. Didn't look at me. just stared ahead. My throat tightened. My stomach dropped. I knew what I should have done. I should have stood up, laughed it off, made space, left the room. But I didn't. Not because I wanted to go there, but because I didn't want the moment to end. Not yet. That silence between us. It wasn't innocent anymore. And I didn't know who crossed the line first. Or if we were both already standing on it. That night, after Noah went upstairs, I sat alone on the couch, hands in my lap like they didn't belong to me. They still held the memory of his skin, his warmth, his breath catching when I touched the edge of his spine. I told myself it was innocent, that I'd only done what any stepmother would do, offer comfort, relief, support. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd said it. Can you keep going? But lower? Like he knew it meant something more. Like he wanted me to hear it that way. And the worst part? I did hear it that way. And for a moment, I didn't mind. That scared me. Later in bed, I stared at Daniel's back. He was already asleep, one arm folded beneath the pillow, breathing slow and steady. There was a time he'd pull me close, slide his arm around my waist, press his lips into the curve of my neck. But now, we didn't even say goodnight. I turned to face the ceiling and let my mind wander to something I shouldn't have, to someone. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't deny it anymore, how long it had been since I'd felt seen. Since someone noticed me, listened to me, looked at me like I was something more than background noise. I used to dream of Daniel touching me like that again. Now I just dreamed of being touched by anyone who remembered that I was still here. When Noah looked at me, I didn't feel like a stepmother. I didn't feel like someone's wife. I felt like a woman again, and that terrified me. The next morning, I avoided his eyes, kept things normal, asked about school, mentioned the weather, pretended I didn't remember the moment we shared. But I could feel it between us. Thick, quiet, unspoken. I started rationalizing everything. Tension happens when you're too close for too long. Hormones, confusion. He's just a teenager. I'm just a woman trying to help. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just him. It was me. It was my heart starved. My body awake in ways it hadn't been in years. I tried to tell myself, it's just touch. He's hurting. I'm comforting. But that wasn't the full truth. The full truth was, I didn't stop because it felt wrong. I stopped because it felt too right. And I wasn't ready to admit how much I missed feeling wanted. The days that followed felt different. Not loud or obvious, but subtle. Like the way wind shifts just before a storm. Noah was around more. In the kitchen while I cooked. Lingering in the living room while I folded laundry. Asking if I needed help with groceries, offering to carry things he used to ignore. He'd glance at me mid-conversation, hold my gaze a little longer than necessary. And I didn't look away like I should have. We started talking more. Little things. Music. School. Memories of his mom. I learned he hated storms, but loved the sound of rain. He liked ginger tea before bed. He always noticed when I wore my hair up. Told me it made me look lighter. That word stuck with me. Lighter. Like I wasn't carrying everything I'd been carrying for so long. And then came the first touch. It wasn't bold. Wasn't planned. Just a quiet moment in the kitchen. I was reaching for something on the counter. He passed behind me, hand gently brushing the small of my back. Fingers barely grazing skin where my blouse had ridden up. But I felt it. Every nerve caught fire. My breath caught. I didn't move. He didn't apologize. Just kept walking. Like nothing had happened. But everything had. That night, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Noticing how my shirt hugged my waist. How tired my eyes looked. How empty my bed felt. The next day, I found myself choosing a different blouse. Softer fabric. Slightly lower neckline. Nothing obvious. Nothing you'd call inappropriate. But I knew. I wasn't dressing for Daniel anymore. I wasn't even dressing for myself. At night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, fighting thoughts I had no business thinking, hating myself for wanting to be wanted, for craving the heat that pulsed through me in moments I could no longer blame on accident. I told myself I was imagining it, that Noah was just being kind, that my own hunger was making shadows out of nothing. But then came the moment that shattered all doubt. One evening, I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen. I heard him behind me, didn't turn, just kept cutting, until I felt him. Not his hands, not his breath, just the shift in air. I turned, and he was standing there, shirtless, sweat clinging to his skin, hair damp from his run, chest rising, mouth slightly parted. I should have turned away, but instead, I looked. The storm rolled in slow. Heavy clouds, low thunder, rumbling like something was trying to speak but couldn't find the words. Daniel was still out of town, extended his trip by a few days. He didn't ask how I felt about that. He never does anymore. By evening, the rain was pouring, soft at first, then harder. The kind that wraps around the house like a blanket but leaves you feeling cold anyway. The lights flickered once. Then again. Then, nothing. Dark. I found the candles in the drawer. Lit 3. The house glowed in gold and shadows. The silence thickened, as if the storm had swallowed all sound. I made tea. Noah came down the stairs slowly. His shirt clung to his body. Wet from stepping out onto the porch a moment earlier, he said the rain helped him think. He sat beside me on the couch. Closer than usual. Not touching, but the space between us felt fragile. Like a breath could break it. Neither of us spoke. Just listened to the storm tap against the windows. His knee brushed mine once. He didn't pull back. Neither did I. Then, he turned slightly. His voice low, barely audible. You don't have to be alone. I didn't move. Didn't answer. Didn't even blink. Because in that moment, I wasn't sure what part of me he was speaking to, but it was a part that hadn't heard a kind word in a long, long time. He leaned in. Not fast. Not urgent. Just close enough for me to feel the warmth of him. To see the hesitation in his eyes. To recognize something that terrified me. Because it wasn't lust. It was longing. And I understood it. I didn't stop him. I should have. But I didn't. I don't remember who reached first. If it was my hand to his face, or his fingers to my wrist, or if it was just the storm pushing us into each other like waves. All I remember is the sound of thunder and the feel of skin on skin. Warmth. Familiar and foreign all at once. And, just like that, everything I thought I was, everything I told myself I'd never become, disappeared. The room didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a secret. A secret with a heartbeat. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the house felt heavier than it did during the storm. Still. Suffocating. I stood in the kitchen, fingers curled around a mug I didn't drink from, listening for his footsteps, waiting for the sound of him on the stairs. I don't know what I expected, a glance maybe, a nod, some small signal that what happened between us wasn't a dream. Or worse, wasn't a mistake. But when Noah came down, he didn't look at me, didn't say good morning. He walked straight past me, eyes on the floor, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. And I felt something inside me fracture. I tried to speak. I opened my mouth, even whispered his name. But the words didn't come. They died in my throat. Heavy with shame, confused by want, choked by something that had no name. He left the house without breakfast. Didn't say where he was going. Didn't say when he'd be back. I stood at the sink for hours, watching the sky clear, watching the world move on, while something inside me stayed, stuck. Daniel came home that evening. He walked in humming, a rare thing. Dropped his keys on the counter and kissed my cheek like always, as if the foundation beneath us hadn't cracked wide open. He asked how things had been. I smiled. Lied. Said everything was fine. Said Noah had been keeping to himself, but nothing unusual. And then I made dinner. Set the table, poured wine, played the role I knew too well. I watched Daniel eat, listening to him talk about meetings and flights and hotel coffee. And all I could think about was the way Noah's skin had felt beneath my hands and how cold my own skin felt now. When Noah finally came home, he barely glanced in our direction. Said he wasn't hungry. Went straight upstairs. Door closed. I stared at that closed door for a long time that night. I feared he regretted it. Whatever it was. Because I still didn't know what to call it. It wasn't a relationship. Wasn't just a moment. It was something in between. Something too complicated to name, but too real to deny. But more than anything, I feared I didn't regret it. Not fully. Not honestly. And that realization made me feel like a stranger in my own skin. I started avoiding him. Not out of punishment. Not out of anger. But because I didn't trust what I'd see in his eyes. Regret. Or worse, nothing at all. I tiptoed through my own house like a ghost, moving around corners, waiting until I heard his door close.